I am predicting that these 5 Pokemon are going to be very strong in the early meta for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So I'm going to start with Murkrow. Now Murkrow is already a reasonably good prankster because dark typing gives it immunity to like other prankster moves, so it's immune to prankster taunt and stuff like that. But what's going to make this a lot stronger in the new format is Covert Cloak, which is going to prevent Fake Out from flinching it, which can literally guarantee you a Tailwind. So you have essentially an unstoppable Tailwind at your disposal. And also having access to Prankster Taunt to cover Trick Room, this is going to be a very strong Pokemon for controlling speed, and probably will be the strongest in the format. Now, next up on the list is Tyranitar. Now, Tyranitar gets a lot of benefit from the Terastallized gimmick, because you can get rid of the Rock Dark typing, which is weak to a fair bit of stuff, and Tyranitar having access to a plethora of moves, and a very high base stat of 600. This Pokemon will be more flexible in terms of offense than it has before. And if the new information that we got last week turns out to be true, it will still keep the Dark and Rock stab when it is Terastallized. So you can still go for Rock Slides if you need to, but you can switch its typing to make it more bulky. I think that is just going to make Tyranitar extremely strong, at least at the start of the format. Now, next up is Frostmoth, and Frostmoth has the Tyranitar problem, except this typing is even worse. You have 2 4Xs to Rock and Fire, which are not ideal. The thing is, this Pokemon has a very strong ability that halves the damage taken from special moves. That pair with a reasonably good 90 special defense, this thing is incredibly bulky on the special side. So being able to switch out that really bad typing for, say, Flying or even Fairy, because it does have access to several Fairy type moves, then this Pokemon could actually play around its ability and be a very good special wall, while also having a reasonable amount of offense, and still having that Ice type stab without having the Ice type weaknesses. That is a huge bonus to all Ice types, basically. But I think Frostmoth is going to benefit from that a lot, which should actually make it pretty strong in the format. Maybe not top tier, but it will be a lot better than it used to be. Okay, next up is Torkoal. Now, Torkoal's already pretty strong. You have Drought combined with Eruption to have massive amounts of offense. The thing is, the Terastallized gimmick will make those fire type moves even stronger. So this thing ability to sweep the opponent team is going to be stronger than it ever has been. So if you combine this Pokemon, let's say Lilligant and Oranguru, assuming both of those do make it into the game, you have all the coverage you need in terms of speed control to enable this thing to play its game and just start one-hitting everything. Now, this does have a bit of a weakness because there are several new Mon that have Flash Fire, which if they are common in the meta, that could pose an issue for this build, but you would most likely have coverage for fire types anyway in your team, so. But I have seen some people talk about how this is going to be pretty strong, and I do agree. Now, last on the list is a bit of an odd one, and I'm going to explain my reasoning. I think Ditto is going to be really good in this format. So the biggest problem in a best of 1 scenario is you don't actually know the Terra type that your opponents have, which can literally make any attack you do turn into a dice roll if it's actually going to do anything or not. Ditto can mitigate this a fair bit. It can transform into a Pokemon that is on the opposing team, and by doing that you can then check the Terra type that it has on it, and that can give you valuable intel so that you know how to play against that particular Pokemon, especially if you manage to get Imposter to transform into their main sweeper. That will give you a lot of flexibility and a huge advantage in just the knowledge, so that you'll have a much better understanding of how to outplay your opponent. And we don't know this for sure, but if Ditto copies a Terastallized Pokemon, that could be huge, because then you could have 2 Terastallized Pokemon on your team. That is not confirmed though, that's just a guess. There's a good chance that will not happen, but if it does work that way, which would be really funny if it did, then Ditto would be incredibly strong in this format. But even without that, I still think it is going to provide a good amount of intel that you otherwise would not have access to, and I think that flexibility could become very essential in a best of 1 scenario, because this is probably the least predictable competitive format that we've ever seen. And I'm sure there's some other Pokemon that will also be strong and that'll get a huge benefit from this, but I just wanted to specifically mention these 5. If you have any that you think will be really strong in the new game, let me know down in the comments below.